Okay.
Hey, we're here.
Hello.
Good.
Hey.
Hello.
Welcome to BAK BAK, hosted by Bay
Thank you.
Area Kids, where we get to sit down and talk with some of the J Fashion indie designers bi-weekly. And this week we
Mm-hmm.
are very happy to have Camille Noir from Empire Noir. Thank
Ooh,
you for
hi.
coming.
Thank you for having me.
Do you want to talk a little bit about Empire Noir and your brand?
That always makes me, it's always difficult for me to talk. I suck at talking about myself. I just like throw pretty pictures and say, that's what's it about. But anyway, I'm gonna try. So, my brand is a gothic lolita brand. It is inspired, from my culture and growing up in Gothic lit, of course, the Baroque period, the Victorian period, and it's kind of like a form of expression of things that I've always wanted to do. And I'm not just now doing them. So yeah, that's the brand.
So how did you discover Lolita fashion and J fashion? How did you discover Gothic Lolita fashion?
Oh wow. I think I would say I discovered it 3 times.
Oh, okay.
The first time I discovered it, I think I was about 11 or 12. At that time, I was still in Cameroon.
Mhm.
And during the holidays, because like, we lived deep, deep, deep in like the countryside, so far away.
Mhm.
So we were way away from cities. So during the holidays, whenever it was like the third term holiday, we would leave and my grandfather would take us all deep into the cities. We'd go to travel from city to
Mhm.
city. So we went to like one of the central cities in Cameroon. And that's where we get all like the channels and stuff like that. We get international channels. And so one of the international channels was, guess what? The manga channel from France. And I was like, oh, and every weekend they would talk about Japanese street culture and Harajuku, and they would do like little excerpts and exposés and little fun little blogging type things of discoveries, what's happening, what inspired this anime, and that's how I discovered Gothic Lolita as a 12-year-old.
Wow.
I'm just looking at the screen going, but what the hell is that though? Like my cousins
Wow.
and my cousins are like talking to him like, what is that? What is that lacy thing that
Mhm.
girl is wearing? And I think what I first saw was Angelic Pretty,
Mhm.
because they were talking about Neighborhood Story and Angelic Pretty and Baby the Star Shine Bright.
Mhm.
And so I think one of my uncles actually had one of the mangas from Neighborhood Story in French translation at the time.
Oh.
I think this was the 90s or so. And
Okay.
so he came and then he gave it to me and I was like, oh, okay, thank you. And so I started reading that. That was the first time I saw Lolita. I think the second time I discovered Lolita again, I think I was a teenager. I think I was about 15, again,
Mhm.
in France. The
Mhm.
first time again, I was going to one of my first anime conventions. Again, another older cousin
Oh,
was
okay.
taking me, cannot remember for the life of me. And then I saw it again and I was like, oh my God, I remember
Mhm.
that. I'm still obsessed with that.
Mhm. Yeah, like
And
forgot and then like came back to it, that
get
kind of
kicked
thing.
back into it.
Mhm.
And then again, I think when I came back to America, at that time I was moving back to America.
Mhm.
And then the third time again, I think it was about 16 or 17 or so.
Mhm.
I saw it again for the third time. I was like, oh, okay, this is a thing. I want it. I want it very bad. I really, really want it. The love for it just keeps increasing. And that time there was a lot of like mangas involved with Lolita fashion, Lolita
Mhm.
aesthetics,
Mhm.
and I was just like, oh, I need it on my
Mhm.
body now. So that's how I discovered Lolita.
Yeah, someone in the chat said they never knew any of this about you.
Oh my God, I'm sorry, guys. I'm just going through my memories. I'm chaotic and I remember nothing until somebody asks me.
Yeah, but it's like like the third time's a charm, right? Like
Yeah,
it's a
and then I
it's
was
a
in high
sign.
school here. I was in high school here. I think I went to I was in Baltimore County at the time, and then I moved back with my mother in
Mhm.
Alexandria, and then I went to TC Williams, and I was just like, "This is the greatest thing ever." I'm in smack dab in the city where I have access to everything. I can go everywhere, and I
Mhm.
started wearing lots of lace all over again because
Mhm.
when I was in Cameroon, I started wearing lots of lace after that. So I would make like
Ah.
little lacy things I would have around the house.
Mhm.
Again, my grandfather had like a cottage in like the
Mhm.
countryside, and that's where we lived at
Okay.
growing up with all my cousins. So we had all these. The house is very built in Victorian style stuff, and so he had
Oh.
all these old novels picturesque novels from like the Victorian era.
Oh, wow.
All these template magazines that he would just have and keep for stuff like that. And I would just go off, and I wanted to look like that, but I wasn't sure because I was too young. I was still like building, so I kept going back, leaving and coming back. So that's how it got to like bam, and then it clicked.
Wow. Yeah, this sounds, yeah, someone said it sounds absolutely aesthetic.
Yeah.
It sounds amazing. You mentioned like making like little lace things. So is that how you learn how to sew? When did you start learning how to sew and start sewing?
Well, I didn't. I knew how to hand sew a little bit, but I think I always had an affinity for sewing. I've just been discovering stuff recently, like going through my memories again. And I think I've always been into sewing. I just didn't know it. Because I remember when I was a kid, I had an older cousin named Mercy, and Mercy was the one who was the tailor in the family in my mother's side. So, because I lived with my father's side, I lived with my mother's side of the family a lot. So Mercy worked at a tailor as a tailor's apprentice.
Oh.
And so every day from school, I went to Presbyterian primary school. So I would walk home, and her shop was like right there where she worked at in Cameroon. And I would just like stop there every day to say hi to Mercy. I would buy oranges, or she would have something like for me to eat before I go, waiting for her there at the stuff. So, and she had that old Singer, the really, really old Victorian one that you have, it's all manual. And so, and she had all these Mercy had all these Barbies, old dolls that she would find, and she would make clothing for them. And that's why I would always go there. So I always like saw that, and I was fascinated by the mechanics of that. I didn't like re-enter sewing until probably when I was like 21 or 22 or so, when I was in San Francisco. So like that's how I got introduced to sewing. And after that, I was just like, oh, okay, this is a thing. I really like sewing. I really like it. And I want to like study it further if I can.
Well, so I understand that you went to fashion school.
Yeah.
And how did that help you make clothing now? And can you talk a little bit about what you've learned and what was helpful about going to fashion school?
Well, I first started through a fashion program at City College of San Francisco. So that's how I started out. And you know, how I even got into that was just a deuce, because again, at this time, I'm not even thinking about studying fashion. You have to understand, I went from being like a English major to like a biology major because I wanted to become a pharmacist. And then I started studying medicine. I was like, I hate this. I hate this. I'm getting depressed. I don't know what's going on with me. My mom was like, stop, go back to English literature. So I was studying English literature at the time, and I wanted to become like a writer or something. And so I'm on my way to class in San Francisco.
Okay.
Again, at the same time, I'm like doing like modeling gigs, and I'm part of this band that's going nowhere. And I'm like, okay.
You're part of a band?
Yeah.
That's very aesthetic.
So again, at this time I'm heavily into VK. Okay.
Very aesthetic.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna go to class, and I'm like dressed in orasheke from head to toe. I'm the most colorful one in my fucking English literature class. And I'm sitting there, I'm standing and waiting for the elevator to go upstairs. And the head of the fashion department was standing by me. Her name is Miss Diane Green. And she looks at me and she goes, are you part of my class? This is mid-semester, by the way. This is like almost the mid of the semester. Okay, my first term in San Francisco. She's like, are you going to one of my classes? And I'm like, no, I'm an English major. She goes, no, you're not. I'm like, I am. She's like, I went to the elevator and she tries to convince me this whole time. Okay, the whole time for the 5 minutes of convincing me to try to come into like the class and take it. She's like, as far as you, I'm like, that's gonna cut. She's like, don't worry about it. So that's how I started fashion.
Wow.
And after that,
not like discovered.
It's discovered in a sense. And so that's how I did it. And I started studying fashion, and I was like, oh, okay. She says, study fashion merchandising first, since you're not sure if you want to become a designer or anything. And so that's how I did it. I went through fashion merchandising, and that means fashion show production, fashion, basically you study how manufacturing works from different plants, you know, and basically how fashion merchandising works as a whole. All these little things really did apply, and that schooling really helped until when I got like, you know, got an access or whatever, a grant to go into like FIDM, the FIDM, and the Academy of Arts that was there. And so that really, really helped at the time. And the more I started to do it, the more I realized I wanted to not just, the first time I was in a photo shoot, I was like, oh, okay, I like this. I like where this is going. I might want to dabble into fashion design as well. And it did help. It really did, because I was able to see the whole picture of where things are supposed to go and how you're supposed to do it.
I see. So you feel like the merchandising definitely helped.
Yeah, it definitely helped a lot. It definitely helped a lot, because being in the merchandising field, and you have this access where you get to see all the little details of everything. So you're not just focused on creativity of it all. You're looking how to market yourself as a creative, and how to make money as a creative, and how to basically manage yourself and sort of protect yourself as a creative. And so I'm looking at, okay, if I'm going to be a designer, I have to plan for fashion shows. I'm going to need a model. I'm going to need a photographer. I'm going to need to schedule everything in a time frame. I'm going to see how much production value I can give to my customer. Where's my clientele base? What people can I attract to my clientele base? It's just like a lot of details. And so all these details, when you study fashion merchandising and fashion show production and all these things, they really like blend everything in. So when you go in as a designer, whether it's big scale or small scale, you're like, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going. I can basically be able to manage all facets of everything that I need, and without getting like, effed over. Because it will happen.
Yeah, that's a big part of like running an indie brand, right? It's like you have to wear so many hats, you have to do so many things yourself.
Everything at the same time, and it is hard. It is hard.
Was there anything else that you've learned in fashion while you're studying that was helpful for you now?
I learned a lot of helpful things. I learned at first I was always bold. I learned that being bolder is never wrong. I mean, yes, it's wrong, but fuck everyone. Because fashion is competitive as hell. And if you've studied, I realized that if you have studied any form of fashion, if you've been in the field of fashion, you have the courage and the strength to tackle any other industry if you want, despite not knowing anything. You go in there without knowing. You go with the flow. It's fine. Just go with the flow, and you develop some tough skin. You have a very high, strong mental state.
Yeah. It is very competitive.
It is cutthroat.
Cutthroat, yeah. You use a lot in your clothing. You use the hearts as a motif a lot. Sometimes like a broken heart, something like a full heart. Is there any what does it mean for you? And is there like a deeper meaning that you want to share?
I would say both. I would say it's both, kind of something like a deeper meaning and something I've just been inspired by for a very, very long time. Like the broken hearts dress, again, everything has a story. Like I remember when I was going to Kasukan for the first time, I didn't realize Kasukan had gotten that big. And so my friends were like, you got to come. And then there's like a tea party. The first tea party I went to was hosted by Amelia, and she did this dark fae themed tea party. And so I made an outfit that was like Queen Titania, and I was like, oh, this is fun. I said, I'm going to do it again. And so she's like, I'm like, then I told her, I'm like, Amelia, you have to have a Valentine's Day themed like tea party at Katsukan, because it happens during Valentine's Day, Valentine's weekend. I'm like, it just makes sense. I'm like, we need this. Like ever since I've been in Lolita, you've never had that explosion of aesthetics, of just basically love aesthetics. I'm like, we need to do it. I'm like, it's so obvious that Lolita should be able to do that. And she goes, okay, I'm gonna do it. And so the next year she hosted, and I'm like, I have to make myself a dress. And so I'm pulling all this like scrapbooks of like inspiration. I'm like, what was the thing that I've always like drawn me into like Valentine's have like the heart shape, but nobody like goes really big with it, as big as like how to express themselves with it. So I'm like, okay, I am going to make something for myself. And so I'm going through all my old inspirations. So I realize Vivienne Westwood, Neighborhood Story, Nana, that broken heart vest, that velvet vest with the red blazer and the velvet head vest. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
that's the inspo right there. So it's Vivian Westwood
Mhm.
inspired. Is also basically about my relationship with myself,
Mhm.
basically, and just about self love. And
Mhm.
sometimes the heart is full because I am full out of love with myself, and sometimes the heart is broken because I'm out of love with myself.
Mhm.
It's kind of like a construct between like self-loathing or broken heart from
Mhm.
external and internal stuff as
Mhm.
well. So I put the
Mhm.
broken heart on some things, and sometimes the heart's full because
Mhm.
sometimes you're just like fully
Mhm.
overwhelmed with self-love,
Mhm.
and that's always good. And it's
Mhm.
okay basically to feel both of them, these
Mhm.
things. And just like combining all that stuff with my inspiration from like Vivian Westwood or my favorite like mangas like
Mhm.
Nana and Neighborhood Story. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm gonna put that in there. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I just love how bold it is. Like
Yeah, I
right
love the
there. Yeah.
boldness is again.
Yeah.
It's just I wanted something that was just really, really striking and like really,
Mhm.
really bold and in your face, but again at the same time completely simple
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
clean
Yeah. Yeah.
that would stand out. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna
Mhm.
do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Like Gothic Lolita fashion definitely takes that hearts theme sometimes and just like run with it.
We
And
run wild with it,
yeah.
and sometimes I always realized that it was in the colors that not really
Mhm.
translates to everyone. And I'm like, so
Mhm.
you would see a lot of hearts, so mostly with Sweet Lolita,
Yeah.
and that's where it stays. And I'm like, that's really
Exactly. Yeah.
hard to translate into Gothic and
Mhm.
classic aesthetics,
Mhm.
aristocratic
Mhm.
aesthetics, otome. That's where that dress came from. And I had like I drew it like 3 different times. I
Mhm.
remember I had a meetup in my house, and people came and they saw different versions of the dress,
Mhm.
and so I had it in like this first aesthetic with like organza. I'm like, okay, I
Mhm.
don't want to do that too sheer, it would be too much.
Mhm.
And I went back to this. Okay, I said, okay, I'm gonna do it like this, put like
Mhm.
the hat, combine all my favorite elements into it. I said,
Mhm.
okay, if they get it in this color, if I make it in red, because red is
Mhm.
one of my favorite colors, I'm obsessed with red. And so I was
Dressed
like,
up for you today.
except for today. And so I'm like, I'm going to stick it here, and I'm going to stick it again in as many colors if I can. And
Mhm.
if you can translate, I'm going to leave you an open room to be able to translate this velvet heart, into different Lolita aesthetics as much as you want. So if you
Mhm.
basically got it in pink, you can
Mhm.
either dress it up to be really, really sweet,
Mhm.
or you can make it really, really classic, depending on what you accessorize it with.
Mhm.
You know, if I make it in red, you can go really, really goth. You can go really, really
Mhm.
otome. It depends. Aristocratic. It depends where
Mhm.
you want to go with it. It all depends on the styling.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. I love that. Spreading that heart motif to other styles, not just sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. Um, so you talked about you having like 3 versions of the dress. So tell me a little bit about your design process. How do you go from like an idea to like a finished product? Kind of like how you
hmm
came up with the heart dress. What's your design process? How do you go from an idea to actually having a product?
So when I have an idea, when I'm inspired by something,
Mm-hmm,
again, you get inspired by so many
mm-hmm,
random weird things.
mm-hmm,
And so what I first start is I go for the general mood.
mm-hmm,
So again, I studied fashion where fashion was still very, very old school and translating. I was like right at the cusp of the 2000,
mm-hmm,
this is 2012, 2010, 2011. So
mm-hmm,
everything is mood boards with me. Like anybody who's done a photo shoot with me has seen my
mm-hmm,
mood. I am like,
mm-hmm.
here's a mood
Okay.
board. So everything you go with the mood because it really
Mm-hmm,
helps your direction.
mm-hmm,
And so I gather all these images that really inspire me, and I create a mood board. And I won't
mm-hmm.
just make one mood board. I would make like 6 or 8,
Oh, wow.
sometimes 10 different mood boards, depending on the several mood and different depending on the
Mm-hmm,
like my mood at the moment, and
mm-hmm.
sees what's the recurring theme of each mood board that I'm trying to speak. And then I take all those images from each mood board that I'm feeling the most, and I put them all together. And that's when I get the general official mood for it. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay, I see where this is going. And then I go from that, I go say, when I see this mood board, what kind of names are coming up in my
Mm-hmm.
head? And so I named the dress. It could be either like
Mm-hmm.
for the Rhapsody Heart dress was the Rhapsody Heart, because at the time I was listening to Bohemian Rhapsody, and I was like, my
Oh.
emotions and all this red. I was like, holy
Mhm,
shit, This is all red. So I'm like, Rhapsody Heart.
Mm.
And so I pushed through that. And then when I have a name for it, that's when the aesthetic of the dress design just snaps in my brain. I'm like, oh, I want this shape. I want this, I want an 18th century cut, but I'm going to modernize it and put, darts in it. Okay, I'm going to make a V pointing through, or I'm going to make the side V's pointing long. I started sketching it all out on paper. I'm terrible. I used to be great at drawing. Now I'm shite at it. And so, because I stopped drawing for like years, for years.
I was like, isn't drawing something you get better over time?
No, I'm shy. I mean, I got better. I'm getting better. The more I started going back into, I'm like, I'm refiguring my aesthetics again.
Okay.
I really got good at drawing because I'm still crazy about. That was when I was a full form of my anime weeaboo self. I was at the high. I was god level. Okay, I was drawing chobits. Like I would look at it on a screen and draw it in pen perfectly. And now I'm like, I can't do shit. And I'm like, God, I shouldn't have stopped. I should have taken those art classes. But like, yeah, so I sketch what I see the best way I can, and I can see it in my head. But once I have that mock-up on paper, I basically color it, and I'm like, I see the design. I'm like, oh, okay, what can I do physically, and what am I not skilled at the most physically? And I start to work around that. And then from that, I make different patterns for it, and I just basically cut out. I would take like a basic pattern that I have before, I cut it out, and I redo it again and make tiny little patterns of it. And sometimes I don't even cut it out. I don't even cut out the pattern. I just lay on my bed or on my chair or on the floor and stare at the ceiling and talking to myself like a mad person for hours. Okay. I am basically redesigning and designing the same dress in my head over and over and over. And I'm like doing the thing. If you've seen, and if anybody has watched Sherlock Holmes, like the one with Benedict Cumberbatch, where he has like his mind vault and where he has his mind palace, where he brings out all the words and he's doing this with his hands and he's putting. That's what I'm doing in my brain with designs. I'm like, no, put this seam here. No, take that out. That's just too much. I'm like, okay, what if that's going to fit with somebody with bigger boobs where the person has no chest? Oh my God. I was like, I have to do something to compensate for everybody. I'm like going that. And then finally like, okay, I'm just going to cut it first. I'm going to do a sample on top of the original fabric. But if the fabric is too expensive, I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy cheap fabric and do it first. I buy the original fabric because I get really, really excited. And then the dress comes through. And even sometimes when I finish the dress, or anything that I'm making, I look at it and say, okay, I don't like that. That did not translate very well off of paper on my head. So I will take it apart and add something new. So by the time I'm ready to the final, it's a whole different dress at the end. And I'm like, okay, yes, because I wouldn't even go back to resketch on paper because that would drive you crazy. So you just go with the flow until that. And that's my design process. It's me doing that. And then when I can't really figure it out, I primal scream for at least 30 minutes outside. My neighbors all know this. They know I'm crazy. And then I cry because I can't find the fabric that I need that will work in the perfect color. And then I go back and I color some more and I redraw. Sometimes I redraw it just to see it in a different version because I think the new idea is really, really good in my head. And I'm like, okay, this new idea is way better. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it don't. It's a chaotic process. It's not for everyone, but it works for me.
Someone said you gotta manifest the design into reality.
Yes, you do. Yes,
your mind.
You do. It's like push. And those are things I've discovered that, especially people with intense creativity, we will go insane if we don't put that thing on paper or make it real. It doesn't let us sleep at night. Sometimes I have nightmares being choked by my own goddamn dress. My own dress is like, make me real. I'm like, okay, I'm up.
So every dress includes like 1 minute of solid screaming. That's the secret.
Yes. Now at least before you get to actually sewing it and then you realize how much detail needs to go into it, that's when you start primal screaming for an hour. An hour at a time. You're like, why have I chosen this?
But it's worth it at the end, right?
At the end, you see what you've created and you can become very, very proud of yourself because you are a creative person and creative people. That uniqueness is now out in the world and people are grateful for that. And that's always a beautiful thing.
Awesome. Yeah, someone said, let me live. Your
Exactly.
nightmares are just let me live.
Let me live. Like, let me live. I'm like, okay, I'm up. I'll create you. I won't. I won't. I won't, I won't discard you. I'm
Yeah.
here. I'll make it. Just let me sleep.
Um, part of your brand statement is that it's inspired by your African heritage. Would you like to talk a little bit about your culture and how that has influenced some of your designs?
Absolutely. Like, tailoring and making clothing is a big thing from scratch. It's a big thing in West Central African culture.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a tailor shop. When I was growing up in Cameroon, there was a tailor shop, like at least three in every other street or in every other
Yeah,
block.
wow.
So, that's a big part. We believe in making things from scratch. In Cameroon, people live in a very organic way of living, and we live in a very recycle,
Mm-hmm.
community. So everything that we have, we repurpose.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that culture really, really influenced me. African culture is also very, very, I lack for better to be bougie.
Mm-hmm.
That people bougie. Like, Africans are so bougie, and whenever they want something, whenever they're going about to like go to a party, to an
Mm-hmm.
event,
Mm-hmm.
that regal cultural ancestral history will come out. So we go all the way
Oh.
out. We
Mm-hmm.
design these regal pieces. So that regality is really, really deep embedded in my tribes, in my culture, because I'm from my family is from two different tribes. My mom is
Mm-hmm.
from a tribe called Ngolo Batanga, and my father was from a tribe called Bayangi. And those two tribes should never admit, because those are one of the bougiest fucking tribes you ever meet in Cameroon, especially Bayangi people. Bayangi people are known as as golden tigers. Okay.
Wow.
They're the tigers in gold. Okay. They are bougie, regal, opulent, aristocratic, that old, I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking old world aristocratic system, African systems that still
Mm-hmm.
exist in their villages today. That's how they still govern. And so that
Wow.
type of stuff really like influenced you, because I remember that heightened state of elegance growing up. Even though we
Mm-hmm.
lived in the countryside, I basically lived like Elizabeth Bennet, the Bennet family. So I'm just realizing that. And so, and my grandfather being in a very, very high status,
Mm-hmm.
my grandfather used to be the Secretary of State of Cameroon, and then he was also Prime Minister for a while. So that heightened state of regality, and then my that's on my mother's side. On my father's side, he he was a village king. One of the kings that still the chiefs in the
Mm-hmm.
Bisamabang villages, that still know their names today. Whenever I would go visit these people, when I have to go out, over here I am the granddaughter of this person, so I have to be on my heightened sense of all this
Mm-hmm.
regal shit of the aristocratic behavior. And so I'm always removed, and I have to sit quiet, I have to do this, I have to speak in a certain
Mm-hmm.
way, I have to change my tone of my voice. And when I'm on my father's side of the family, oh my god, the baby princess has come, and I can't, my feet literally will not touch the ground. It was insane. So I'm always adorned in gold. There's always this ancestral traditions, cultures, all these rituals I have to do before I can even step through the village. And all these things, really influenced how I approach Lolita as well. Like, anybody who has met me or hung out with me in Lolita, I have a trashy mouth, but you would see me and I just refuse to not be look like ridiculously perfect all the
Oh,
time. Like, all
yeah.
the stuff that I design just ends up being really aristocratic and really,
Mm-hmm.
really regal. And that's where that comes from. Because it's
Wow.
that cultural sense. Even when I design something very, very basic and very simple,
Mm-hmm.
I will wake up, I will put it on a mannequin and come back, and my mom has basically taken my lace and glued it and tried to bring it up some more. And I'm
Right,
like,
right.
no, 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 no. It's something simple. And so, yeah, she's like, oh, I understand. 2 minutes later, we should probably up this. I'm like, no, mom, it's not supposed to be ornate and regal. It's just supposed to be nice, simple. I'm like, okay. And it's just it's that sense of that
Mm-hmm.
tradition. Our traditions are very, very, have very regal effect to
Mm-hmm.
them. And so
Wow.
that's what really influences me, how I design
Yeah.
Lolita.
Wow. Like,
Yeah.
wow, that's fancy. And
Yeah.
that's like, I don't know. It's like a lot of pressure, but it's also like,
It's a lot of pressure.
but I don't know, just having that sense of regalness to like every piece. Like I think I don't know.
Yeah, I think
I feel like that's kind of like the essence of Lolita in a way.
it
It's
is the
like
essence of Lolita. I think
that.
that's probably why I was so drawn to Lolita
Mhm,
in the first place, is that sense of regalness, but it's a personal regalness.
mm,
It's your
mhm,
regalness, that state of, it's very
mhm,
intimate. It's like
mhm,
your state of what you visualize your regal state. And
mhm,
I was like, oh, if I can translate, if I can give that to anybody in the
mhm,
world,
mhm,
you know, how that would be amazing. Some of the stuff that I wouldn't say is traumatic event for me, but kind of something that stayed with me, because when I was growing up in Cameroon, in primary school, you don't when you're going to school, children, both boys and girls, they shave off their head.
mm.
Your head is shaven down.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm talking buzz cut.
Mhm,
Okay, but because I was a high-ranking official's daughter,
mm,
and then at that time I just came back. I was just fresh, like 5'6", and I was from America at
mhm,
the time. I had this huge
mm,
American accent. Everybody was like, "Oh my God, this child!" Nobody would
mhm,
touch my hair, and I remember
mm,
all these boys want to play with me, or all these kids want to play with me, and I was being called pretty, this, that. And I
mhm,
remember this girl that I was best friends with. Her name was Winda. I was obsessed with Winda. To this day, I'm still looking for her. She's
mm,
probably happily well in Cameroon. So, Window was really, really pretty. Window had these really, really gorgeous, like honey colored eyes,
mm,
really intense brown, like chocolate brown into like
mhm,
almost umber
mhm,
eyes, and she had this nice, gorgeous olive, like dark olive skin tone, and had a
mhm,
buzz cut. And I thought she was the most gorgeous thing in the universe. I was like, she looks like a beautiful golden panther. And
mm,
I would follow her everywhere. And this girl I think she was confused. Why is this child, this
mhm,
aristocratic child, following me everywhere? And
mhm,
I remember her saying something to me like, I wish I was as pretty as you because you have long hair. And I remember it was
mm.
because a boy called her ugly, and I was furious.
Wow.
The
Yeah.
next day I went home and I told my mom, I was like, cut off the hair.
Oh.
Cut off the hair. My mom was like, really? I'm like, cut off the hair. And so that day, when I cut off my hair, the next day I went to school, I'm like, and I told them, like, officially now we're equal.
Mm.
So let's see. I say we're
Yeah.
equal now. We're equally pretty now. And I think
Yeah.
that's what it is with me with Lolita. I'm just trying to make everyone feel as equally as
Mm.
regal as possible.
Mhm.
If that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's just like the power. I don't know. I'm
The
still
power.
reeling from that story, but it's like like clothing has that power, and
It does. It
great
has that
to
power.
have give you that sense of regalness.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It really does. Because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, fashion is a visual business.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
what you feel outside will definitely help you translate
Mhm.
into inside. And if I can give somebody that feeling, if you wear
Mhm.
my clothing and feel that regal and that
Mhm.
powerful,
Mhm.
then I've accomplished my task.
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah. Wow. Um, that was supposed to be a fun question, by the way.
I'm sorry I got deep. I told you I'm
It
chaotic. I'm
just
sorry,
got
guys.
way deep.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. But this is the start of the real fun questions.
Okay.
Can you, can you talk a little bit about the prints that you use and if it's inspired by your culture and where do you get your fabrics from? Like some of the prints that you've done.
Oh yes, definitely. It's all inspired by my cultures. Even the colors, the plain solid colors, it's all inspired by my culture. We love bold, solid
Mm-hmm.
colors, and you see it. I'm obsessed with red. Red is a
Mm-hmm.
very powerful culture in African cultures across the whole continent.
Mm-hmm.
Red is
Mm-hmm.
influenced
Yeah.
by red at some point. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's also yellows. Sometimes trying to learn how to work more with yellows, and I'm just like really falling in my love for yellow. Africans, we love yellow. We see red, we see yellow, we see green. We're
Mm-hmm.
like, yes, this is the
Yeah.
blood vein of our country.
Mm-hmm.
You notice that all our flags have that color because it
Mm-hmm.
symbolizes of the red vein. The green
Mm-hmm.
is our vegetation, our rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
It's all have to do with Mother Nature, the god, the
Mm-hmm.
goddesses of nature or whatever, the earth, everything. The yellow, gold, regal, light, all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and the red, the blood of the
Mm-hmm.
land.
Mm-hmm.
The blood of the
Mm-hmm.
ancestors, the blood that
Mm-hmm.
connects, the boldness,
Mm-hmm.
the passion, the everything. So all those bold colors, that I fully go straight to those every single
Mm-hmm.
time. That's definitely influenced by my culture. Even the
Mm-hmm.
African prints that I choose, definitely
Mm-hmm.
all the ornate, regal, like, stuff.
Yeah.
I go for florals more because
Uh-huh.
where I grew up, I had a lot of flowers, just wildflowers
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. So I would
Mm-hmm.
immediately go to anything that has beautiful, like butterfly-esque or
Mhm.
floral stuff. And at the same time, I will go towards the stuff with emblems on them a little bit,
Mhm.
because a lot of when growing up in school, we had a lot of emblems. That was a
Mhm.
thing. Okay, there's a
Mhm.
thing I loved about Lolita. I think for a hot minute there was uniform style Lolita, and just
Yeah.
just K fashion in general, Java street
Yes.
fashion. There was the uniform aesthetic was big with the plaid and
Yeah,
then the
yeah, yeah.
emblem. Listen, I was growing up, uniforms were my thing. Okay,
Mhm.
I went to Patriot school, so our uniform was blue and white. So it was this
Oh.
bunch of just like that mana blue, and
Uh-huh.
then just have a white collar and a white like little tie belt, and then you had the emblem
Oh.
stuck right there, and you on like like national holidays or whatever would have all these like marching bands and everything, kids marching,
Mhm.
straight line across school, everything, all the celebration. We got to wear the beret, and the beret was made out of blue
Oh,
plaid.
oh, the beret.
The beret was made out of
There's
blue plaid. So
mhm.
that's what the Lord's supposed to be. It's definitely. So that's how I got it. So every time I see an emblem, I'm like,
Mhm. Let me
even if
check
I
that
don't
out.
buy the Lolita dress, I'm like, even if I don't buy the fabric, I'm like, that's real pretty.
Yeah.
Make more, please.
Yeah.
I hope that it comes back. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's what influences me. And I usually buy my fabrics either online
Mhm.
from African retailers,
Mm.
suppliers, or I literally just go to African tailors that are here. They tend to
Oh.
go back home a lot and then
Mhm.
come back, and they will have like ridiculous amount of fabric prints with them.
Mhm.
And sometimes I have too much for them, and I'll just go to them. I'll
Mhm.
contact them and
Mhm.
say, anybody got anything? And they're like,
Mhm.
yeah, we have these colors. We know these are your colors, Camille. These are people that I've
Mhm.
known growing up. They know my mom, or they know somebody in our family friends, or
Mhm.
I've like helped out from time to time, and they'll just, anything has to have this. Okay, they'll come sell it to me. There's also like a lot of African fabric stores around here in the
Mhm.
DMV, which is one thing I forgot. I remember when I came back and I got really excited. There's this place called the Farmers Market where my mom always takes me, or my mom's best friend takes me, and I
Mhm.
get my fabric stuff from there from now on, because it's just cheaper and
Mhm.
also really good quality. And they
Mhm.
have all the voltage that I can see, and I can actually see the fabric
Mhm.
in person to
Mhm.
see, okay, this is too light, this is just thick enough, this is too thick. Do I want
Mhm.
this to keep this as a winter fabric? So it's all
Mhm.
that stuff. So that's how I go always shopping my fabrics and stuff like that.
All right. Awesome. Um, and you've talked about wearing like VK style, and what other styles did you wear growing up?
Oh wow. High school, I was into Lolita because a
Mhm.
lot, but I didn't have the funds, the
Mhm.
money.
Mhm.
Anyone can know the
Can't have
funds.
fun without the funds, you know.
It don't work. So when I realized I could do VK, and I realized I was even more obsessed with VK, and then
Mhm.
it was punk Lolita. So I wore punk Lolita. I
Mhm.
wore VK Lolita, something that I call it VK Lolita. I don't care what anybody else says. It was basically VK aesthetics with Lolita. You
Mhm.
say arrow, I say, listen, there's arrow Lolita, and then
Mhm.
there's VK Lolita. I will
Mhm.
fight you to the death. I don't care if I'm not making sense. I will fight you for the sake of fighting to win. So I wore with that. I wore a lot of visual K or Ashe K because of all the punch and beautiful colors.
Mhm.
How people, it was me because I really wasn't attracted to kawaii stuff.
Mhm.
So but I could be kawaii. I could be really, really like colorful without having to be kawaii. So I was really into Urashike. All the
Mhm.
bands, Snug, Alice Nine,
Mhm.
Dizzy Stripper, all those bands that had all the colorful Urashike aesthetics. Like, oh
Mhm.
yes, I was obsessed. So with that, so it was VK, Urashike, Lolita, and I was really into punk Lolita as well. Still
Oh,
am.
yeah.
Still
Yeah.
am. Probably
Still
gonna have a punk
still
Lolita
alive.
collection next year. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So into punk Lolita, classic Lolita, a lot.
Mhm.
I was really obsessed with classic Lolita growing up, and
Mhm.
so I really loved that. But what really hit the nail on the head for me was gothic Lolita. The moment I put in my first like gothic Lolita outfit, I was like, oh no,
Mm.
this is it. This is the honey spot. I've always been goth. I don't know what I was doing. I'm sorry. And so I would take all those styles, and basically sometimes I would just basically have elements of each aesthetic that I'm into each chord that I would do in like my aristocratic stuff. Again, I wore aristocrat a lot and OG. So I basically wore almost everything. So yeah, so those aesthetics is what I wore a lot. But as I got, I started to go towards more aristocrat and gothic glitter, just gothic glitter, aristocrat, and a lot of like recently now otome and like, but I try to
Ah.
make it more witchy. I've been taking pictures of
Mm-hmm.
myself on Otome because I'm trying to still figure that out, how I want to make it really, really goth and
Mm-hmm.
regal as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otome is interesting. That's
It's interesting.
yeah.
It's like the love child of Morike and classic Lolita had a baby, and
Yeah.
Otome came out and said, "Hi, I'm here."
Yeah. And like Otome, you can go so many directions with
So
themes.
many.
That's the beauty of it, you know. And like
I love it.
even if the cuts are simple, it still has
Hmm.
that like regalness to it. Like
Exactly.
you can do so much with the cuts.
It's like an abandoned. I like Otome. How do I describe Otome? Otome is like an abandoned Victorians, like a Victorian tailor's shop,
Hmm.
clothing shop, where they have all these dolls in it and all these
Yeah.
fabrics and
Yeah.
pearls and
Hmm.
like golden window, like I mean the golden like picture
Hmm.
frames and
Hmm.
all these things were there. And somebody walked in and said, "I'm gonna put all of this on my body, and
Exactly.
you're going to
Yeah.
worship the ground I walk on." And it
Exactly.
happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I love Otome. It's something I love to wear. Um. Uh. You've actually presented for us before at Bay Area K, one of the past
Yes.
events. You presented a makeup panel for us.
Hmm.
And you're known for your stunning gothic makeup, today included. I know.
Thank you.
I saw the black lip, and I'm like,
Thank
what
you.
what got you interested in these like creative makeup looks, and how did you start experimenting with makeup?
Well, what got me into makeup was VK
Mhm.
and also Lolita, because when I started looking at a lot of Lolita, Gothic Lolita Bible when it was still alive,
It's called a Bible for a reason.
call them Bible for a reason, people. Say your prayers. When it was still around, I
Mhm.
would zoom straight to Mana,
Mhm.
and I would see Mana would have this perfect face with this perfect
Mhm.
cord, and I was like, I literally will have the magazine, and I'd be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm ugly. I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah.
I have to, I'm like, oh, I see. I'm not complete yet. I have to complete this look." And
Mhm.
so again, it just falls into like, I wanted to have a head to toe look.
Mhm.
And so I started getting into VK makeup like that, and Gothic glitter makeup in that heavy sense like that. And so that started getting me into more creative styles, the more I saw in magazines. And then what I saw with Visual K makeup, that's where they got really, really creative. And I
Mhm.
started seeing just people on the street snaps and just in different communities around the world take those makeup aesthetics and just combine it with Lolita looks as
Mhm.
well. And I was like, oh, I'm really doing it wrong. I'm going to do it right. Yeah, you guys wait for me. Wait for my skill. Okay. And so I want to go to photo shoots at the time. And I used to intern for stylist, and I
Mhm.
would work on photo shoots. And the first thing I would do was zoom straight to like the editorial ones, because they're the ones with the
Mhm.
most creative makeup.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would sit there and watch and learn, and I would go and watch makeup tutorials.
Oh.
They would talk to me. You
Mhm.
could do this, you could do that. Until this day, I'm still learning. And
Mhm.
so they was, you could do that with this. How about you mix this? Because I would always go to set in either one of my, streets, fully dressed in street fashion aesthetic. And they'll be
Mhm.
like, "Do you want this? Or how about you combine with this of your aesthetic?" Because I've seen you wear in the past. I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. I'm doing it right now. I'm changing right now as you're speaking. And
Mhm.
so that really got me into makeup. And the more I did it, the more I loved it. I loved styles like Shiro Loli, or what was
Mhm.
it called? Not Shiro Loli. Ah, God, the white
The
face
face.
makeup. The white face makeup.
Shiro Nuri.
Shiro
Yeah,
Nori, there
Shiro
we
Nuri.
go.
Yeah.
Shironori. I keep saying
Yeah.
Shirololi. Shironori. I really like it. I really, really like it, and how it's
Mhm.
so creative and so fast,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how that makeup really blends in a fashion sense for me,
Yeah.
especially who is someone who's
Mhm.
worked on photo shoots and editorials. I'm just like,
Mhm.
oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Blend it together and make this statuesque portrait art onto your body.
Mhm.
And when you go
Yeah.
out, I'm like, okay, I'm a creative person. Why would I not want to look like this all the time?
Yeah.
I'm already suffering. Life is terrible. I
Mhm.
might as well go through life looking flawless at all hours if I
Yeah.
can't afford it.
Yeah.
That's how I got into really. So I got it creating more and more and more and more. And I would say what really pushed me was, at the time, you didn't see a lot of Black people in Gothic makeup.
Mm.
You did not.
Mhm.
And so it really pushed
Mhm.
me
Mhm.
to be fully into like really creative, not just creative makeup looks, but creative Gothic makeup looks. It
Mhm.
really pushed me to do
Mhm.
that. I had to be there. I had to present. I had to represent. I had to show people that, oh, just because I am Black, I will not do this, warm tone classic makeup. No,
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm going to look like Queen of the Damned. I am
Mhm.
Akasha. You will hear me. You will see
Mhm.
me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's really what pushed me for that.
Yeah, even now, like we have all these like alternative fashions like popping up from
Hmm.
like like we have TikTok and like all these fashions
Hmm.
are popping up, and yeah, people of color are still like really underrepresented. So it's great to
Heavily.
really push that.
Hmm.
I'm gonna do this makeup this way because I can. Um, what is the comm scene where you live? If you're involved with the local comm, I know you work with other Lolitas who like model for you in your local area, and you also
Hmm.
like talk about the meets, the Valentine's meets.
Hmm.
I know we're in a pandemic right now, but
Hmm.
maybe you can
Parasonic.
talk a little bit about the before times and the current times.
The days where we used to go out and frolic.
Frolic and touch grass. Apparently, that's a new
Ah,
term.
I'm
Am
okay.
I
I'm not gonna
really?
cry.
Am I being cringy? I don't. I heard
No,
that
we touch
term.
grass and
Touch.
frolic. And oh god. Okay. So I am in the DMV area, which is DC, Maryland, Virginia.
Mhm.
And the com here is we're very, very niche and we're very, very active. We have different like groups. There's a Virginia has its own Lolita groups because Virginia is big because again, we keep forgetting that America is a fucking continent, not a country.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's fucking huge.
Mhm.
And so they have their own DC, they have their own in
Mhm.
Virginia, which I also am part of that com because again, we can travel to Virginia and hang out. And the
Mhm.
scene there is very, very is active, but people is we're all on Discord now. And so everybody's like word of
Mhm.
mouth and everybody because in this area, we all know each other. Some of us grew up with each other. And I
Mhm.
know people all the way in Maryland, deep into Baltimore, who are in Lolita as well. There's the Baltimore Lolitas as well. And then there's the Maryland Lolitas as well. And so we have Metro Lolitas, there's the Nova Lolitas, there's the Baltimore Lolitas as well. And we have, I think the Maryland group has it. A Lolita group. I think we're probably part of DC Metro Lolitas now
Mhm.
because it's really all close together.
Mhm.
And so there's also DC Kawaii style,
Mhm.
which is run by Imani, my girl Imani K. Brown, home skillet for real. These are the people like we grew up when the community first started
Mhm.
here.
Mhm.
This is us it being
Mhm.
teenagers. Like I always tell people I knew Imani when her dreads were this long. Because she has really long dreads, her dress was this long, and now they're like this long and
Oh.
pink. And I love it. I was like, oh,
Oh,
that's
nice.
how far I've known Imani. Whether I was
Mhm.
still here before I moved to California and then came
Mhm.
back, like I've known everyone here. And so it's a really cool, fun community,
Mhm.
despite it being a heart sometimes because of the creative, because, the DMV is very, very boring and very slow paced. We're right by the government and
Mhm.
everybody is a boomer
Mhm.
and still
Mhm.
treats us like a sideshow freaks, like say if
Mhm.
we're,
That's
let's say
that's
something new.
everywhere.
It's everywhere. You watch television, you've seen something bizarre and different before. What are you doing? But other than that, the community comes together. We host our events.
Mhm.
We sometimes do photo shoots. We do hang out, do tea parties. Sometimes we just get together and hang out and sit at somebody else's home and just talk shit all day,
Oh,
and
nice.
what and just like reminisce about the good times, or just put on a movie that is just so painfully aesthetic and just
Mhm.
commentary throughout the entire movie, just
Mhm.
cracking up. And so I love the community here because our community here is very creative. We have some of the
Mhm.
most really creative people here and with a really, really crazy driving force. And they want this place, they want to put seeds here. They want to see the trees grow, you
Mhm.
know. And part of the reasons why I left back when I was like 21, 22 was because
Mhm.
it was so hard putting seeds here. And I called that
Mhm.
era the Great Exodus. Anybody who was a creative here
Mhm.
that was in the basically, visual K or just like the Japanese street fashion scene, people were leaving, people were moving. Some people moved to Japan, some people moved
Mhm.
to Europe, some people
Mhm.
just said we're going to California, some people moved to like New York. Like
Mhm.
that's what happened.
Wow.
Anybody who really wanted to make it
Mhm.
and what they do had to go because
Mhm.
the DMV was just basically suppressing you,
Mhm.
and it was hard. But other
Mhm.
than that, now coming back, I think with what the knowledge we have now,
Mhm.
I think we're able to actually do something, make the difference, and we can see
Mhm.
the difference. So I love this community
Mhm.
here.
Awesome. Is there something that you're looking forward to doing in person when that is possible?
I'm sorry, I froze for a second there. I just remembered that I had to see people.
Yeah. It's gonna be a time.
But I'm definitely looking forward to hanging out with people again, going to conventions. I miss
Mm.
conventions. I
Mhm.
miss going to fashion shows because we wanted to
Mm.
host a lot of fashion shows. So I had a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
ideas of how we could go about doing like local fashion shows, just underground fashion shows in general for street fashion stuff,
Oh,
in our area. That would be really, really cool.
yeah.
I wanted to host a ball.
Oh,
Something I
yeah.
missed that was in the past. This was before
Mhm.
COVID, and
Mhm.
that's when I was in California, and before
Mhm.
I even moved to California, there was
Mhm.
a time where people in Europe, the lolita communities in Europe used to do balls,
Yeah. Wow.
and it was really pretty.
Mhm.
You get pictures on the live journal days.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you see people who hosted balls or actual beautiful, gorgeous tea party events
Mhm.
at evening with themes as well, even in California. And I missed that. I'm like, there's never been one in this area. And so I had been
Mhm.
doing research with a friend where we would host it, how much it would cost, how much we would have to put down, how much we would have to ask for tickets.
Mhm.
I would like to do that as well, especially now that I got back into like designing
Mhm.
again. I'm like, oh, I have to do fashion shows. Oh, I have to do local fashion shows. I'm like, oh
Mhm.
no, I have to do fashion shows. I'm like, oh God, where is everybody? We should have been doing this before. And
Mhm.
so these are just ideas, and that's the things I'm looking forward to, especially, and just being able to get so drunk at a convention
Uh,
room and
yeah.
causing a whole riot to the point where they had to call the cops and somebody
Mhm.
has to come bail you. And
Mhm.
that's what I'm looking forward to.
Bay Area does not encourage reckless drinking.
No, please do not
No, no,
encourage
of course
reckless
not.
drinking.
Please do
Of
it
course they don't.
within the safety of yourself and your.
Yes, if you
Yes,
are
of course.
underage, please disregard
Please do
everything
not.
I have said.
We have never engaged in the alcohols.
Exactly. I don't know what we
Mhm.
said. Exactly. We've
What
never
were we talking
engaged in
about?
that.
Of course not.
We've never engaged in that. I remember being in Bay Area K, so we were wild. It's
Yeah.
before everyone's time, but I remember hanging out with people and I'm like, yeah, San Francisco Lolitas, we were wild. We had way too much fun.
Yeah, yeah. Some wild times. We had one time we just organized like a meet at like a pirate like bar, like it's called like
Perfect.
Smuggler's Cove, and we just all
Oh
dressed
my
up as
God.
like
What year
pirates and
was that?
stuff.
I might have been
I
there.
it, you might have been there. It was a long time ago, but they bought out like the bottom floor, and
Yes,
we paid ahead for drinks, and like we were so smashed.
yes, I was
You
there.
was there.
Oh my God.
I was there.
I, because I remember I probably met you there because I still had my natural hair, but I had like I had a blonde streak in my hair, and I was really into crowns and like really
Mm.
really tight old school like gothic Lolita,
Mhm.
gothic aristocrat aesthetic where everything was just
Mhm.
tight, slim and slender,
Mhm.
with big clunky
Mhm.
shoes. Oh my
Mhm.
God, and probably had that with an eye patch on, and we were smashed. Oh my God,
Oh
me and
yeah.
Brittany were so smashed. Oh my God.
So the funny thing was like the organizer so like we paid ahead because we want to reserve that room, and basically
Hmm.
the money was going for drinks because
Hmm.
you want to buy a certain amount of drinks to have that area for at least like
Hmm.
an hour or something. It's like 2 hours, um and then but like we kept shoving the organizer more money because we were like, oh,
Is that what was
few
happening?
drinks, that's not enough. Like here's more. I was just like emptying out my wallet at that point. It's like, oh,
I
this
came.
I
I
need
drew.
one more drink
Oh
for
my God. See, I
um
don't remember anything. I remember I remember a fuzz of them, and there are photos of that meat probably on on my Facebook.
somewhere. Okay.
It's just fuzzy stuff because I showed up. I was coming from a fashion show already,
Okay.
drunk after party drunk.
Oh,
Okay, I
okay.
was already tipsy. I was already pre-gamed the fuck out of my
Okay.
mind. And I
Yeah.
showed up. I was like, all right, this is part of life of Lolita. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna take off this big poofy skirt and wear my long tight one. That way I don't have to knock everything over as I walk.
Mhm.
Oh my God. Yeah. Again, San Francisco Lolitas, we get into
Yeah.
trouble a lot. I
Yeah.
remember going to several strip clubs dressed in fully
Oh,
Lolita. Several
I
strip
have
clubs with
I have
people.
not done that, but that sounds like an amazing time.
It
Um,
is. The
yeah.
strippers don't want to dance on anybody anymore. They strictly they literally just
That's
leave everyone
that's fine.
and
That's
come
fine.
to us immediately. I'm like, they're like,
Oh.
you don't have to even give us money. We'll just be here because we love you guys more. Thank
Mhm.
you, giving us life right
Mhm.
now. I'm like,
Yeah.
yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
you're welcome.
Yeah. 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 I the one thing I remember that night is a bunch of us got together after we got the drinks and we were like we're really hungry. We're
There's
gonna
always
eat.
pizza in
So
the corner.
yeah, we went to this like Thai restaurant
Hmm.
and so imagine like 10 pirates dressed up. 10 dressed up pirates showing up at your Thai
Oh my
restaurant
God.
demanding more pad Thai.
Oh
um,
my God.
and
Perfect.
the whole we were sitting in the middle of the restaurant. It's not a big restaurant, sitting in the middle, and like we could feel all these people like looking at us, and everyone who was getting up to leave would like try to compliment and say, "Oh, what are you guys doing?" and all that stuff, and like we would try to aggressively compliment anyone who was leaving the restaurant, like, "Oh, you look like you're from a Gap catalog. You look so perfect. Oh, that polo shirt, on
Oh
point." Like we would
my God.
just
That
try to
is
compliment anyone that tried to
oh
compliment us
God.
because we felt because we felt
Oh
like
God, that is
yeah,
such
it
a
was
Bay
wild
Area.
time.
Let's see, that's the real Bay Area K energy right there.
Yeah,
Drunk
uh,
or high out of your mind, and you're at
yeah,
a
we're
restaurant, occupying the whole space, and just being aggressively. Anybody who talks to you, just beat them to the punch so they don't talk to
exactly.
you.
Like, oh, you look like you walked out of a Sears catalog, man.
You're
I love
killing
that.
it, man.
And killing, love those G's on you. Yeah,
Driving everyone out of the restaurant. Oh my God.
yeah.
Good
I mean, they
times.
were leaving anyways, but we just wanted to pay back the favor. You mentioned like a bit about like conventions and all that stuff. What other hobby besides fashion? What other hobbies would you like to share with us?
I collect BJDs.
Oh,
Yes, I have very, very
nice.
beautiful dolls that I kept away
Hmm.
because they're very expensive, honey.
Hmm. That's even more
I'm not gonna
expensive.
cry.
Yeah.
I'm so expensive. Okay. But yeah, this is back when I was in my 20s. I
Mm.
had to get the most expensive dolls because I'm
Hmm.
stupid.
Hmm.
And I'm
Okay.
reckless. And
Hmm.
so I collect BJDs. It was part of when I was taking a break in Lolita. I was like, okay, you know what? I
Hmm.
still love Lolita, but I want to take a break and I'm just gonna put it all on dolls.
Hmm.
And so that's what I did. And I
Hmm.
still have the dolls. I still love them very, very much. I'm probably gonna start incorporating them back into my life and probably make them part of my shop. Since I'm really great now at sewing, I can actually make
Ah,
better patterns now for the dolls and just like
yes.
make really
Yes.
cute little like BJDs. I have all big dolls, so they're all 60
Okay.
centimeters to
Okay. Okay.
70. And so I'm like, okay. And hopefully I can buy new ones in the future because I have all like pale scale ones and I want tan dolls. I want dolls in my color now. And that's probably
Mm.
why I've not really had them out as much
Hmm.
because they're pale and I really want to do like incorporate myself in my dolls now and I'm just like
Hmm.
10 dolls are way more expensive
Hmm.
than the pale ones and I'm just like this is not fair. And so
Hmm.
when you see tan they give you a splash of brown in it.
Hmm.
But I mean a splash of brown, I mean think of coffee, but the coffee is 90% milk and
Hmm.
2% coffee
Hmm.
fan. And I'm just like, could you put more melanin in the damn doll?
Yeah.
Thank you. And that's what I want right now. Other than that, outside of that, I actually I write short stories,
Oh, nice.
cute little short stories, all gay because
Mm,
I'm painfully, painfully
that's great.
gay. Painfully so. And so I love writing those stories, just help me filter through and work through my stuff in my brain. And sometimes I
Mhm.
just want to see a beautiful story written out. And I tell myself, when I can't sleep because I have insomnia, I tell myself stories in order to go to sleep.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
I play them in my head. It's weird, I know, but I grew up in a place where word of mouth and storytelling was very, very
Right. I
prominent
was
in my
gonna
culture.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, what's your process of like writing a short story? Is it similar to your design process where you like
Yes, it comes to the mood, or sometimes just characters, really. I get inspired by
mm,
different other characters where I've seen something before. And I
mm,
think they're just aspects of my own personality appearing. And I'm like, oh,
mm,
hello,
mhm,
who are you? Why are you no, no, shh, it's time for bed. They're like, nah, I'm here.
nah,
Write
nah.
about me. Tell my story. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. I also write a lot of poetry as well. And I'm
Mm.
working on trying to publish a poetry book, a small poem book. It's all
Ooh.
existential poetry, really. I'm very existential and with my
Oh.
relationship with the universe and God and whatnot.
Ooh.
And so, like, yeah. So, yeah, those are my hobbies: poetry, writing short stories,
Mm,
and BJD.
nice. I wonder if there's like a ever a moments where your writing inspired your fashion and or vice
Yes,
versa.
yes, yes,
Oh yeah.
yes, definitely. Red Rhapsody, the Broken Hearts collection, definitely has a poem.
Mm,
Definitely
nice.
has a poem. I was writing a poem about, it was about apathy,
Uh-huh.
apathy and love, apathetic
Mm,
heartbreak,
mm,
just those duality systems as well. And what really drew me to that aspect was vampires. Vampires are really like apathetic or creatures of apathetic love.
mhm.
If that makes any sense, apathetic heartbreak, apathetic love,
Yeah, but
apathetic lust.
yeah, it's like built in, right? Because they're
It's
alive
built
for so
in.
long,
Mm-hmm.
they have to,
You have
at
to,
some
and
point
that's the thing.
disassociate themselves. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's what that Rhapsody of Heart was that idea that I read that poem was just this idea of this intense love and a heartbreak happening for a flash moment for a
Mm,
vampire.
mhm,
And once the
mhm,
season of basically the month of February is gone, you know, so is everything that they were attached to. And now they're just this new person, this new creature again, having
mhm,
to live in a different personality and different aspects of
mhm,
themselves in this new month. And
mhm,
so it was kind of like also of a nostalgia on the memory of love, what it used to feel, what it used to be like to feel that kind of intense love,
mhm.
if that
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense.
Mhm,
That intense heartbreak and that craving those
mhm,
emotions as well,
mhm.
just to feel something as
Yeah,
well. So
yeah.
yeah.
Is there a thing in the future for like an illustrated like dress and poem
Yes,
book, visual book?
yes, I will definitely. I'm already working on it. I'm already working on it.
Oh, looking forward to it.
It's like I have this whole thing printed out, and I don't want to give too much about it, but it's based on colors
Mm, mhm,
and see, it's based on colors and season, and I have like 9 colors going on, which is
mm,
the silver, gold, pink, red,
mm,
green as well, blue, purple, and all
mhm,
these colors that inspire different moods. And I probably might make a
mm,
book of it if it sells. I hope it sells. I'm probably gonna make like only like 30 copies of it, probably, just in case. I really want it to be very, very regal. I already have somebody who I want to illustrate it as well.
mm,
Have pictures as well. Make a real like version of it as well.
mhm,
And so that one I can put those up to like for purchase, and it'll be a one of a kind dress because it's so much detail. It's gonna be
mhm.
almost. It's basically gonna be couture Lolita.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Couture
yeah.
Lolita. It's gonna be really intense.
Welcoming more of,
Hmm.
and if you don't make it happen, it's gonna haunt your nightmares, and the
Yes,
book
it
is
it
gonna
haunts
choke you,
me.
and it's like, let me
Yes,
live.
let me live. It haunts me at least twice a month. It just goes, hey, remember me? How about you
Mhm,
add sparkles in the
mhm.
original design? I'm like, why are you doing this? People can't dry clean or wash sparkles, they fall out.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Yep,
Um,
it's a thing.
Next are some more semi-serious questions. What are some of your struggles as an indie designer and brand owner? You talked
Oh my
about learning all parts of it, and with the design process. What are some other struggles that you've had?
oh my God. I had been working in the fashion industry for so long,
Mhm.
and everything had its own department, and so everything moved in a very quick pace.
Mm, mhm,
Production level was at its height.
mhm,
Release levels were at the height.
mhm,
you know, uh, Customers were at the height, and just accessibility was at its height.
mhm,
And then when you come from that big scale and you have to go back to small, do this very stuff in a very, very small scale, it is
mhm,
very difficult.
mhm,
You know, I've had struggles where, again, with models, you
Mhm.
know, where when I worked with brands, the other brands before, as not as my not my brand, but with other brands before, I could get models like I could just call an agency
Mhm.
and say I'm working for this brand, and they just send
Mhm.
them
Mhm.
immediately. You know, the brand is paying for this. You
Mhm.
know, you can get any model off the street. You can put a casting calls and
Mhm.
stuff like that. Just getting models. Accessibility.
Mhm.
You know, and just in general, is this even before COVID?
Mhm. Mhm.
When I was in San Francisco, in California, California is a very fast-paced place. You can get models very easily. People would drive
Mhm.
out. People are always living in the city. Everywhere you can find a studio space. Compared to here,
Mhm.
that's hard.
Mhm.
You have to set up everything yourself. You have to get the models yourself. You have to look in a certain way. At the time, I would have a co-stylist with
Mhm.
me. I had like two people with me. So a co-stylist and the person who's helping me dress at
Mhm.
the same time. So I'm just directing and also putting stuff on. And so we're working as a single unit. Now I'm doing all of that by myself. And it's hard, especially when you're
Mhm.
dressing someone who in Lolita. It's
Mhm.
layers with layers, and you're trying to get
Yes.
everything to lay just right on their body, even the
Mhm.
way that they don't even see it,
Yeah.
and that's really,
Yeah.
really hard. And then I'm doing the production myself. So I'm making everything by myself. And
Mhm.
I went and made the Rhapsody Heart dress, has a lot of details in it. And I cry all the time when I
Mhm.
make a new dress because I can't push things as fast as I want. I
Mhm.
have to slow myself down, and I'm
Mhm.
constantly doing bespoke. So I'm like, since I have no
Mhm.
one here to help me, so I'm like reconstructing everyone's dress according to their body. My
Yeah.
nightmare is that if it does not fit, if I send a dress out to someone and it doesn't fit, I will have nightmares forever. It will
Mhm.
haunt me. It will haunt me. It will
Mhm.
haunt me. Sorry, I'm trying not to
Oh,
cry. It's so hard.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
chaos.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
it's just concentrated chaos. And so
Yeah.
I'm doing that by myself. We're
Mhm.
normally like that Rhapsody Heart dress. It usually would take 6 people to make that dress.
Mhm.
Somebody working, let's say the ruffles, somebody working on the
Mhm.
cutting out the bodice, somebody is
Mhm.
serging. And so by the time
Mhm.
it's like a day, the dress I could push out like when I was working with people, we could push out like 3 to 4 dresses a day.
Yeah.
With sculpting, now I'm doing all of that by myself, which takes me like days to weeks sometimes because I have to work on multiple and I have to stop with real life issues as well
Mhm.
happening.
Yes,
And so that
exactly.
production is also really difficult as
Yeah.
well. Designing has been difficult as well, just getting supplies and materials,
Mhm.
really.
Yeah.
Again, you work with a company with investors, you can have access to a lot of things compared to now where you want to buy muslin, 20 yards of muslin, and the people are looking at you going, it's like this amount of money. And you're like, no, it's muslin. It should be cents
Mhm.
it should be
Right,
cents on the
right, right.
dollar.
Mhm.
And so that too is also very difficult. I have to do photo shoots myself now. I've always been into
Yeah.
photography and I have to
Yeah.
do photo shoots by myself.
Mhm.
You see this right here. This is part of our background that I did a
Mhm.
photo shoot earlier for the new
Oh,
collection that
nice.
I'm doing for spring for like
Nice.
Ursa Major. And yeah. So it's just hard. I have
Mhm.
to buy a whole of these backgrounds. I have to play me and my friend, thanks for my friend Kai, you know, they come here all the time and they help me all the time.
Mhm.
Every weekend that they can spare to me, they give it to me and they do photography and they edit all my
Mhm.
video, all of that stuff. It's really hard to execute things to the details, to the minute detail, to the minute like beauty of it, of what you're trying to translate in the story you're trying to tell.
Mhm.
It's hard to execute it like that, like how you do to compare to when you had like a whole team doing it with you
Yeah. Yeah.
where there was already a space, and especially when I was in San Francisco, there was always a space ready. We didn't have to
Yeah.
do shit. You could call
Mhm.
somebody somewhere has a Victorian house fully decorated
Mhm.
Victorianly in
Mhm.
Baroque style, and you have to
Mhm.
just show up with your models, and they'll be
Mhm.
like, "Oh, you want to use our tea set too?"
Mhm.
And you're like, "Thank you." They're like,
Mhm.
"Here's our freshly picked files." They had everything in their house,
Mhm.
or you just had a blank background space where you could build. You could find
Mhm.
people who could build stuff from scrap
Mhm.
as well, and you could pay them or they just owe you a favor for next
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
So basically, that trade for, I
Yeah,
miss
yeah, yeah.
that. It's really
Mm.
hard because I
Mhm.
remember I would do a photo shoot with someone. They would do, the photographer say, okay, since you've like I work for you for free this time, how about you bring me this model back and I
Mhm.
want your styling expertise and some of your garments that you made.
Mm,
I'm
mhm.
like, done deal, just say when
Mhm.
let me put you in your schedule.
Mhm.
Whereas for here, everything is, I forgot that the DMV works in a different pace. So
Yeah.
everything is a very slow
Mhm.
pace. We have to plan because we have to work there 9 to 5. Whereas in
Mhm.
California, New
Mhm.
York, and even other worlds where the fashion is very prominent, we're like 1, 2, 3. You meet somebody on the train today and you're doing a photo shoot with them tomorrow afternoon.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
just met them on the train.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
crazy. Either
Yeah.
that word of mouth, that everything too is also word of mouth in California and in New
Mhm.
York. So I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who got what you
Mhm.
want, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
and you're literally talking to them and like, I have the guy's number anyway. And like, they give you
Mhm.
the number and you're calling this person, they're calling the person, they're letting the person know via text
Mhm.
that they need you for this space. When are you
Mhm.
available? Because they could really use it. And like, they will even ask, can you pay
Mhm.
them or can you not pay them? If you can't pay them, boom, that's always good.
Mhm.
You know, that trade for that accessibility, that pace, it with now as a brand, I have to slow everything down and I have to let myself slow everything down because
Yeah.
I'm so hard on myself.
Mhm. Mhm.
I am so hard on myself. I criticize myself. I'm like, I could do better. I should be doing better. I've been
Mhm.
doing this in a bigger scale, and I have to constantly remind myself
Exactly. Yeah.
that I'm doing this at a small
Yourself.
scale. I'm like, I'm just me, you
Yes. Yeah.
know, I'm just me, and I still don't have all the supplies. I'm
Yeah.
still like figuring out, going, oh, I'm going to need a new space.
Mhm.
Oh, I should probably save up for that new space. Oh, I should buy this new stuff.
Mhm.
Oh, yes, I should get this. Okay, I should work with this person more. This person. So I'm just like, okay, you know, it's hard.
Mhm.
It's a lot of hard details, but I'm slowly getting back and better at it. And I'm like, okay, I'm
Mhm.
gonna redo this and redo that and schedule this and do stuff in a more smaller
Mhm.
scale. And this should be able to flow out until when I start to build and get more. So
Mhm.
fingers crossed,
Yeah.
guys. It's so hard.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
god.
Yeah. But it is, that's the thing is, you have to do so many things by yourself.
By yourself,
So,
you're wearing all these hats by yourself. I'm like juggling, and I don't like
mhm.
juggling. I
Yeah.
don't like into real life juggle. I'm like,
Mhm.
I hate it.
So on that topic, if you had one thing you could tell someone who was interested in becoming an indie designer, what kind of advice would you give them?
I would say definitely go to school first for fashion merchandising. Learn how to
Mm-hmm.
manage before design.
Mm-hmm.
You could do learn how to design and manage. You know, do that at both. Do become a double major for that.
Mm-hmm.
Facts. Even if you don't finish,
Mm-hmm.
because you can finish this, teach yourself later
Mm-hmm.
on.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just you have to study that. You have
Mm-hmm.
to study that because management is key.
Mm-hmm.
Manage yourself is key, and see it will help you direct your what you want to make, with the kind of people you want to make, how much you
Mm-hmm.
want to make how much of it you want to make during the year,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or how much per month. It will
Mm-hmm.
help you plan better to build
Mm-hmm.
yourself a team,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to pay your team and pay the people who work with you.
Mm-hmm.
Learning fashion merchandising is definitely a good thing. And also, you want to be a jack of all trades,
Yeah.
especially you want to start at any small indie brand,
Mm-hmm.
because again, this is a visual business, and you want to
Mm-hmm.
learn a jack of all trades. I mean, a little bit of photography, a little bit of editing, a little bit of makeup, a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
hair,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of like details, sewing, especially sewing.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, sewing, because sometimes production will, if you're like, if you're buying stuff from a different country doing
Mm-hmm.
resales, you're going to receive some things that are just ill-shapen, and you're probably
Mm-hmm.
going to correct that yourself
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. And so all those little things
Mm-hmm.
you definitely want to learn doing fashion merchandising will definitely help.
Mm-hmm. And you gave us a little sneak peek, but what are your plans for the future?
Yeah, depending on what part of the year, because I go with the flow. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
Sagittarius. It's all chaos and mutable
Mm-hmm.
stardust in here. There's a small screaming angry cat in here. So it depends. I know that I'm planning something for Halloween.
Oh,
I don't want to give it away.
don't
I don't
have
want to say
to.
anything. Just know that it involves the color green, and that's it.
Ooh, green for Halloween.
Yes, we're going to be very, very green for Halloween. Very,
Oh.
very green. So that's what I'm planning on doing. It's going to be very, very regal. And that's that. I think, but for next year, I am definitely working on a couple of ideas. I'm working through the moods and a couple of sketches for each idea. I have like 3 collections. Again, I am like Sherlock Holmes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Benedict Cumberbatch, Sherlock
Mm-hmm.
Holmes. Okay, where I have a mind palace of things that I've stored in my brain, and I go
Mm-hmm.
into the vault. I'm like, okay, what did I have here before?
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling this again. Have I felt this again?
Mm-hmm.
So right now I have this idea for something called Blood. Again, I'm
Mm-hmm.
goth, so I want to do a lot of like bloody punk
Mm-hmm.
something. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep that. And then there's flowers again. I'm
Mhm.
always obsessed with florals. I'm like, I want to do
Mhm.
more florals. Since I've done this
Mhm.
again, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go crazier next year with the flowers.
Mhm.
I'm gonna be obnoxiously gaudy
Mhm.
about it.
Mhm.
So more florals again. I think I have a couple of other collections in my mind that I have not worked through, but for right now, I'm thinking for next year for the Gothic collection, it probably is gonna be blood, unless I'm reminded of something. And again, oh, another one, Sin of Roses. There we go. It's a
Ah.
collection in my brain. I'm going like Sin of Roses. I want to do something again where I just bury everything in roses.
Mhm.
Just
Yes.
everything obnoxiously in roses.
Yes.
A
Yeah.
rose is my favorite flower, so
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I want to bury everything in
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
So it's between this blood or Sin of Roses. I might actually end up combining the two of them.
Mhm.
Maybe not. Just leave them in two separate collections and work through
Mhm.
them throughout different years. So
Mhm.
yeah, hopefully it works
Yeah.
out. But that's the preview for that. And then there's
Awesome.
Ursa Major. There's
Yes.
Ursa Major, a dreaming hibiscus, which is inspired by the memories growing up in the countryside in Cameroon. Like I said, we were the Bennett family.
Mhm.
We were Pride and Prejudice family.
Yeah.
Like literally the
Yeah.
affairs that happen in that household. African aristocrats are no different than British aristocrats in the
Mhm.
19th century. In the
Aristocrats
18th
are
and
aristocrats.
aristocrats are aristocrats wherever you go.
Mhm.
So it's just like, so I'm just doing that based on that growing up and running around,
Mhm.
all this wonder, all this floral nature, and just being fresh during the raining seasons and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So yeah,
Awesome.
that's what I'm
Just in
doing,
time for
guys.
spring.
Yep, just in time for spring. So it's going to be a limited collection. So whatever the prints I have, that's all the amount of fabric I have. So it's going to be very, very little release. So when it drops, grab it while you can. That's all I
Yeah.
can say.
Um, so that's the last question that I have. So if the chat has any questions, feel free to type them out. I'm also going to drop a link to your Instagram. Is that what's the best way for people to keep up with your stuff?
Well, my
Instagram.
personal Instagram is just all memes because
Okay.
I'm a walking meme. That's how I handle my chaos. That's how I handle my stress and my anxiety with funny memes. So I
I
would
have
say
the
just,
Empire Noir one.
yeah, so just go straight for the shop stuff. Just go
Mhm.
to Empire Noir. Also, look at my shop page on Facebook, which is also Empire Noir as well. I think I have a link of it somewhere. I can drop it here in the private
Well,
chat if that's
well,
possible.
we'll get people on that.
Okay. Yeah, on Facebook, Empire Noir on Facebook, keep up with that. There's also, I have a Patreon now for people to support me. I'm probably late on my monthly stickers, but I finally got them in and I'm doubling up and everything as well. I have tiers, which I'm going to like send them new stickers. So everybody's going to get two different stickers. The new sticker for May is Chaos is the only God that answers. That's my favorite quote. I came up with that quote.
Ooh,
Chaos is
nice.
the only God that answers. Just say it. That's just going to be me saying that line in
Mhm.
very old timey font.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just Chaos is the only God that answers now these days. So yeah, you can support me on there. You get behind the scenes videos of me when I'm making stuff, or me
Mhm.
just rant, being crazy and weird, and just you get to see things where they happened before time. I might list shop things on there, so you have access to be on the purchase list first
Mhm.
before anybody else. You can get access to purchases earlier, so you don't have to fight depending on what tier you're on. And then just a lot of free gifts for the people on my higher tiers, like free like floral brooches, sometimes skirts, sometimes head bows, depending on what I have a lot of samples of, I made
Mhm.
up, and I gift my Patreon those samples. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, we have the links in the chat, so be sure to check them out. Any other
Mhm.
questions from the chat, or is there anything that you would like to share?
And just stay
Anything
tuned
else?
and please, please, please. I love all the support you give me. I love seeing the stuff that I've made and send out to people who have purchased them and they tag me in their box opening videos or their core videos. Please keep tagging me in these things. Keep tagging my shop. I love seeing it. I absolutely love seeing it. It makes me, inspires me and motivates me to make more and work even harder. Like, please give me those box opening videos where you open and see you receive my bonnets. I just watched one last night of a girl who like got one of my Soleimani bonnets, the heart
Uh-huh.
shaped
Yeah,
bonnets,
yeah, yeah.
and the what she ordered one in black and she put it on and she was like, I could see in her eyes, she's like, I feel powerful. And I'm like, yes, you
Yes.
absorb that power.
Mhm.
Yes. You have to be able to, I'm like, absorb it. So all those things like that, I love when people tag me in my stuff. It helps promote my shop as well.
Mhm.
When you receive something and you do a box opening and tag, it promotes my shop. Instagram gives me more features because they won't let me use music.
Mhm.
So yeah. And hopefully in the future, I'm hoping that if I get to 3,000 followers on my shop page, I might do either between 2,000 or 3,000. I might do a giveaway. I might actually give away one of the
Oh,
bonnets as a giveaway.
wow.
So yeah, and
Wow.
those bonnets are hard to make, and they have a lot
Mhm.
of detail in them. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's the goal.
Awesome. Awesome. If there are no more questions, I'm just gonna wrap it up. Thank you so much,
Okay,
Camille, for coming on. Camille from Emperor Noir.
thank you
Um,
for having me.
and yeah, no problem. This has always been fun, and I'm so glad Jess started this series. So yeah,
Yay! Thank
from
you.
yeah, thank you. From Bay Area K, our next event is Ursa Major that is coming up in uh 2 weeks ish. Yeah, in 2
2 weeks ish. I
weeks.
know. I
Uh,
cry every day.
yeah. I need to start panicking now
Yeah.
for that.
Hmm.
But thank you so much, Camille, for coming on, and have a great day. Bye bye.
Bye.